What's going on, Muscle Monsters? Alain Gonzalez here, and in our previous periodization video, my buddy Tom of Flat Whites Free Weights gave you an overview of what periodization is, how and why it works, and if you haven't seen that video yet, be sure to do so before you watch this one. Okay, in this video, he wants to delve a bit deeper. He wants to discuss linear periodization and why, despite what many people may say or think, it may not be the most optimal approach to training if your goal is to maximize muscle growth. So, without further ado, I'll let him take it away.
Hey guys, back again with another video on periodization for you. So in this video I'm just going to cover why I don't believe linear periodization is the best for hypertrophy. It's not the best one to build the most muscle in the long term. Now, just to recap, in a linear periodization model, you go through various phases, starting with high volumes and ending up with low volumes with really high intensities. So, for example, an athlete might do a general preparation phase, then a hypertrophy block, a strength block, a power block, and then a peaking block to peak for their sporting performance. So if we take an example of a power lifter, they might start out squatting sets of 10s, then next phase 8s, next phase 5s, then 3s, and finally tapering down to hitting some heavy singles to mean that on competition day they hit the most weight possible. And so that's a linear model. Now it works great for peaking for explosive events, strength-based events. So powerlifting, weightlifting, shot putters, sprinters, for example. This model works really, really effectively, and each phase potentiates the next. Works great. However, if you think about it, at the start, you're doing your hypertrophy block, you're doing quite a lot of training volume. And then as you come through the phases, you do less and less volume and push intensity higher. Intensity being the percentage of 1 rep max that you're moving. So, for example, you might start doing 3 sets of 10 with 65% 1RM in the first hypertrophy block, but by the peaking or your power of it phase, towards the end, your intensity is 1RM, the percentage is much, much higher. You'd be like 90% of your 1 rep max for hitting singles or doubles, but you can only do so many sets of those because it's very taxing on the nervous system to recover. Now, we know that for hypertrophy, volume is the key driver of hypertrophy as long as you're above a certain threshold. And that threshold tends to be agreed upon in the literature about 60%. So you need to be lifting heavier than 60%, basically sets that are less than 20 reps per set. Now, as long as you're doing that, then the most amount of work you can do above that threshold is what's going to get you the maximal hypertrophy. So this is why often people fall in the 6 to 12 rep range, is because it's a really efficient way to accumulate a lot of volume in a time efficient manner. Unlike hitting loads of doing the same volume for sets of 3, you'll beat yourself up, your joints will suffer, and you'll take lots of rest, so the sessions will take a lot longer. Now, the other thing is that's the floor kind of on the macro level as we watch through the training year, how we start with this high intensity and we drop down to a low intensity. Not ideal for bodybuilding purposes. However, also week to week, you see people have schemes where, for example, week 1's 3 10s, week 2's 3 8s, week 3's 3 6s. Now, in week 1, you provide a stimulus through volume to your body of 3 sets of 10 with a given load. Now, that volume, the stimulus drops each week with 3 8s, 3 6s. You're doing less and less work. Now, the signal you're sending to your body to adapt and build muscle is getting smaller and smaller week on week. So you're not progressing optimally, and in fact you're violating the principle of overload when it comes to hypertrophy. And specificity is king. So sure, that model might get you stronger, and that's great. And strength is related to hypertrophy, but it's not the only thing, and it's not the key thing. If you're training for size, you need to focus on training for size. Do exactly what required to make that happen and maximise the benefits. So probably a better option is 3 6s, 3 8s, 3 10s, because the workload week on week is increasing. Now, just to bring that together, a quote from Eric Helms, which is a great one. Really good guy, someone well worth a follow and reading their material. But he says that hypertrophy is primarily related to the total work performed and is less specific to the intensity. So again, bringing that point back, as long as you're above 60%, the more work you can do, the more hard sets you can do above 60% of one rep max, the better your results. So logically, therefore, over time to progress, we need to do more. The overload principle is fundamental to your training success, and one where all your training should be based on. Over time, you need to do more work to force the body to adapt. We need to force homeostasis to be disrupted, to force the body to make some adaptations, and in that case, it's building more muscle. So a model that gets you to do less and less volume week on week doesn't make any sense in my mind for building the most muscle possible. That's why I don't believe in linear periodization for hypertrophy, and I instead prefer a reverse linear model. I'll get into more details on that in the next video.